What is going on, everyone? Matt here for GR Weekly on a Wednesday. Unfortunately, no Monday show. All the midterms hit me all at once. Again, I am a journalism student over at Stony Brook University, so I don't get to have all the free time in the world, unfortunately, for this sort of stuff. But if you follow me at Methodical One at the bottom of the screen, you know why very clearly that I had a whole lot of things going on over on Monday. But back here on Wednesday, going to be back on Friday. And again, not only available in video here over on YouTube at Gridiron Ratings, but we also have the audio only as well, available on Spotify and Podbean. And over on the Gridiron Ratings channel, we're very happy to have passed 200 subscribers. Very thankful for everyone who tunes into not only my show, but getting Defense over with Gary and crew and the slate over the weekend with Kyle. So we're very happy to get things rolling here. Now, as you see at the bottom of the screen, we do have the show schedule. We got to talk about a little trade that just went down in the NFL that might impact some fantasy situations, might not. But the Houston Texans have traded Mark Ingram to the New Orleans Saints. That angered a little bit of Brandon Cooks, if you follow him over on Twitter. But what does this mean for the Houston Texans backfield? Possibly not a whole lot, but they do get Tyrod Taylor back very soon, which makes a difference. I did see a note over on Twitter that not my information, someone else. 6 touchdowns in a game and a half with Taylor, 5 touchdowns in all the games that started by Mills. So maybe a little bit of a better offense. Johnson, a player I did like going into the year as a pass catching option. Did not see a lot of that. They did not see a lot of the field with him, Lindsey, and Ingram all splitting the work. For Ingram's purposes, he is the backup running back for Kamara. That's all he's going to be over there. It's not like he was getting a lot of fantasy production for our matters anyway, just because he was just doing a lot of carrying the ball, not a lot of receiving ball. And in PPR formats, that's not going to be enough for us. But this does open up Lindsey and Ingram to possibly see, a good, healthy share count of snaps that will lead him to be possibly fantasy viable. Now, I went through I play in 18 leagues, some dynasty, some Scott Fishbowl and all the other fun things going on. Of the 18, I think I picked up a Texans running back, and I think in 4 or 5. So for what I was looking at on my benches, who would I drop for these sort of guys? I was not dropping anyone of handcuff worthy sort of running backs, guys, like Pollard or Dillon or Madison, those kind of guys. I was dropping Jarrett Patterson, Brandon Bolden, all running backs that we were not really looking to be pushed into our laps. Anyway, these Houston guys have been on waivers all year. Could they just stay on waivers? Are they real priority for your team? Possibly. But again, I was dropping, back end receivers, back end running backs. Look at the worst player in team, maybe a defense on a bye. I have the Ravens in a few places. I can drop a defense. I'm fine with that. Not really sort of spots I'm looking to really, sacrifice the bench spot for a defense I'm not going to be using. So those are sort of guys that I'm looking to drop for these Houston Texans running backs. We do have a question in the chat, and just like you can, if you come over to the YouTube channel, Gridiron Ratings, over on youtube.com. Kenneth Gainwell this week. Now, unfortunately, unlike last week where we had 6 teams on bye, and a good portion of those teams had running backs that were good starting running backs for your teams, we do have only 2 teams on bye, which would be the Baltimore Ravens and the Las Vegas Raiders. Kenneth Gainwell does come in as a mid to low RB2 for me. I still kind of see as curious as what they're going to do with Boston Scott. Boston Scott was actually a player I was dropping for those Houston Texans players as well. But Gainwell for me, are they going to still use them in sparse ways? There is a chance for Gainwell to get a good amount of possible receptions, 3-4 possibly in this one. Am I looking to see him break out to be like a top 15 sort of finish this week? No, but it's not necessarily a bad play. It's just an RB2 sort of play. So let's talk about the guys I have ranked over and under him. You can see all those rankings as my pinned link over on twitter.com. Players I am starting over Kenneth Gainwell. Chuba Hubbard, James Conner, and Elijah Mitchell will be 18, 19, 20. Kenneth Gainwell currently running back 21 in full PPR. Starting him over Chase Edmonds, Melvin Gordon in that Washington game, and Antonio Gibson on the other side. So again, low RB2. Do I think he's a fine play? Yes. You possibly have 2 running backs who are better than him. You possibly might not have any. That's just kind of how the NFL works these days. But I think he's a fine option. Not anything I'm overtly excited to play, but I think he's a good start over there. And the second question, should I start Kirk or Aaron Rodgers. I believe Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers this week. It might come as a little bit of a surprise, but with all these inactives are going to be for this Green Bay Packers game, a game we're going to get to in just a second. I do not have Aaron Rodgers as a top 12 option this week at quarterback. Kirk Cousins, well inside my top 10. That Sunday night game against Dallas, I think, is one of the more fun fantasy games of the week. We're going to be covering that game over on the Friday show, as that is the Sunday night football game. But this Arizona game, I, one, respect the defense, and two, with just not having his full plethora of options, really he needs just Devontae Adams for most of the matters in some games. But without Adams, I am not very excited to start Aaron Rodgers. I'll be going with Kirk Cousins. I picked up a lot of Kirk Cousins this week in a few different spots to supplant guys like, Derek Carr or Lamar Jackson, or B, I think Cousins with off his bye is a player that is going to be jostling for a top 12 finish. Let me look at what his finishes has been this year at quarterback, because he's been a guy who's been kind of popping in and out of the top 12. From weeks 1 to 3, 13, 6, and 6 were his finishes. 27, 21 against Cleveland and Detroit. The Detroit game kind of just got away. And then the Carolina game, he was the second best quarterback on the week. There's a spot here for Cousins to finish, I think, as a top 5 quarterback. I like him and Prescott in that game. Prescott well inside my top 5. I think it's going to be a really fun one for sure. Thank you for the questions. So let's go into that Thursday night football game, right? Green Bay versus Arizona. Currently, the line that I have is -6.5 from ESPN.com. They get their information from, let's take a look, Caesar Sportbook. So that's where that line's coming from. It's possibly moved. I think it did move to the 6.5. It was not this high a spread, I believe, at start. 50.5 point over under on this one. Starting with this Green Bay side, let's just kind of get it in and out. Green Bay to be without Adams and Lazard. Only 4 active wide receivers. MVS is still on the IR. My sort of what I can see is this game plan going for Aaron Rodgers. I don't think they're going to see a lot of downfield action. I think they're going to try and keep it close to the line of scrimmage. Randall Cobb, Robert Tonyan, Aaron Jones, hopefully, right? We just saw a game where the New Orleans Saints were able to beat the Seattle Seahawks with basically just dumping off to Alvin Kamara time and time again. Now, is Aaron Jones Alvin Kamara? No, but Aaron Jones is a very capable receiving back. And honestly, A.J. Dillon has done a little bit of that as well this year. I think it's just dump off city. I think it's going to be a heavy dose of those players. Randall Cobb and Robert Tonyan, I think, are going to be fine. Let's say desperation options at their relative positions. I'm looking for other places than Green Bay. One, I respect this defense. Now, J.J. Watt has been ruled out for this game, but I do believe they do get on the line. They do get a player back in Arizona. Was it Chandler Jones? Yeah, Chandler Jones is back, though, for this game. So lose Watt, get Jones. Still a very, very solid defensive front there. So I'm not really playing too much Green Bay if I can. I am trying to sit Rodgers if I can. In some places, it's going to be hard to do so, and it feels icky to kind of say a guy like Aaron Rodgers. But otherwise, Cobb and Tonyan, just desperation plays, not looking for much else from this Green Bay side. We do have another question in the chat. Also, do you think is Terry a good start this week as well as Patterson? I'm going to assume Cornell Patterson, and Cornell Patterson would very much be a good play if that is the one. I want to start Antonio Brown over Terry since they play Broncos. Antonio Brown is probably not going to play. News today from head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when old Bruce Arians, the old jokester as I call him, there's a story behind that, but he thinks that Antonio Brown might be out to about like week 10. He's currently in crutches. There's an issue with his ankle. If I don't have the correct information, that's why I was looking over on the Twitter. But I am seeing that Terry McLaurin and Cordero Patterson will be better options here because they're going to be playing, and I don't think Antonio Brown is. Let me see if I even have him ranked. Because that information did come out just a little while ago. Let me see here. See where I got Antonio Brown, because I'm pretty confident there was news on him. Yeah, spotting the crutches at practice. Yes, from fantasypros.com, Dan Harris saying that went from just a sprained ankle to possibly multiple weeks missed for him. But I don't think he is going to be playing in week 8 at the least. Again, there was the report from Bruce Arians that he might be out until week 10. So I'm not playing Antonio Brown. I have a lot of Antonio Brown. So I'm probably going to just be removing him altogether from my rankings. So both Evans and Chris Godwin, there we go, will be coming better plays this week, but you'll be going with the 2 other receivers there by default. And back to this Thursday night football game over on Arizona. I think this possibly hurts Arizona a little bit if this Green Bay side turns into a lame duck. You're starting Murray, you're starting Hopkins, who is technically questionable, but is expected to roll out there on Thursday. I prefer all the Arizona wide receivers besides Rondell Moore to Cobb. But this is the bad version of those Tampa Bay Buccaneers we were just talking about. Week to week, it's very hard to state who's going to score and who's going to have the big games. They're all flex options outside of Hopkins. And you're trying to really push to have a spot where you can have situations where you're not, having to rely on these Arizona receivers, but you're hopeful in your flex or third or fourth receiver, whatever it may be, for it to really go out. And to answer this about Patterson, the thing about that number 1 ranked defense for Carolina against running backs, right? So that's a points per game situation. I want to go through those games they've had because there's a few things about that Carolina team, right? So Jets in week 1, they were still kind of like playing in and out of who they're actually going to be starting for them. The Saints in week 2, that was the game where they had like 3 coaches available for them, and they were not able to actually field an adequate enough team. Houston Texans in week 3, that's been a disaster. The Cowboys, I did well. The Eagles don't use their running backs at all. And then Dalvin Cook had a good spot. So they've had about a month of players that were not actually adequate enough, really, fantasy options for them. They were playing very soft teams to start the year, and then they've also played in spots where you're not seeing a lot of big rushing numbers against them. That number 1 ranked defense, I think, is a little soft. The real rushing defense that I will not be playing guys into would be like the Buccaneers and like the Saints. Those are more options where I'm looking at. It's like, all right, that is a high quality rushing run stoppers. Those are teams I'm really looking, the Buffalo Bills, the Cleveland Browns are in the top 5. Those are guys I'm thinking of as a real strong running defense, more so than the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have been a team that has very much disappointed me in a bunch of different facets. One, obviously, Christian McCaffrey, with him being out, has made this offense all the much worse, but has affected their defensive side as well. Not playing the soft opponents they had to start the year, and B, just being on the back foot because their offense has really suffered. But I am, listen, I appreciate you appreciating me. That's a Gesicki. We're going to talk about it a little bit because we do talk about that Miami Dolphins game in just a little bit. But the Dolphins and Gesicki in a tough spot against Buffalo this week. But Gesicki has really turned into a different player this year. So I'm expecting hopefully a good week out of him as well here in week 8. But back to this Arizona side. Outside of the receivers, we got to talk about Edmonds and James Conner because we do get a bunch of bodies back after those buys in week 7, right? Both running backs are in the top 24, but James Conner, I think, needs to be respected a little bit more because he gets a really, really interesting if this turns into a very bad game. One game over the last 5 did he not score in double digits in full PPR, and he has outscored Chase Edmonds, who were really the primary focus for this team going into the draft season as being the better option between him and Conner. A few weeks, a few rounds difference between them. James Conner has been the better running back over the last 5 weeks in terms of just a points per game basis, which again in full PPR, which I would think is Edmonds' best format, you would see him a little bit more highly than you would get out of Conner, but that's really what it's been. And are the Falcons run heavy? No, I wouldn't consider the Falcons a run heavy offense, not at all. Especially last week against Miami, they very much made a point to just be very pass happy against Miami Dolphins. Can Patterson and Davis run the ball? Sure. I wouldn't say they are a particularly run heavy offense, I would still lean to them being more of a passing team. I don't have let's see if I get I don't have the pass run ratios, unfortunately, for me. I usually usually get that information at the end of the season, as the site I use doesn't really update it that often. And one last play from this game, Ertz, firm start for me at tight end. Very happy that we got in that trade two startable tight ends out of both the Ertz situation now over in Arizona. I am, in fact, wearing a Zach Ertz shirtsy, and then we do have Dallas Goedert over there in the Eagles. No, definitely. Listen, I love questions. I love when people stop in. I love when people have stuff they want to do. Should you start Schultz, Ertz, or Gesicki? That's a good spot to be in because those are three tight ends inside my top 12. I believe I currently have it leaning as Dalton Schultz. I have Schultz third, Gesicki fifth, and I do have Goddard fourth. 3, 4, 5. No, actually, no, you have Ertz. Ertz is ninth. Schultz third, Gesicki fifth, and Ertz ninth. But that's a good spot to be in. Technically, if you're really bad at receiver, you could probably play two of them. Again, Gesicki, I think, is in a very tough spot here. Is it a good possibility for garbage time situation? Yes. Possibly for him to just still be they're using him differently. They are not treating him as a tight end. They're treating him as a receiver. They're getting him out in space. He has had a ton of big receptions, 9 receptions of 20 yards or more this year, when in all of 2020, he had 10, which was his career high at that certain statistic. So for me, Schultz, again, I love the Minnesota game. We're going to talk more about that game on Friday. But that's all for the Thursday night game. Again, I'm expecting not a good one. It looked like a great on paper game. And then all the COVID situation just kind of popped out. I don't think there's a way Adams kind of gets into this. He needed 2 negative tests. I believe he's been firmly ruled out. So unfortunately, we're just going to play with the guys we got. So that's all for that. Unfortunately, there's a few bad games on this 1:00 slate of games on the docket for today. One here is the Cincinnati versus the Jets. The Jets will not be having Zach Wilson. They were playing with whatever his name is, Davis, because they traded for Flacco. Mike White. Yeah, Mike White is the quarterback for the New York Jets. Whatever he is, at least we know who Flacco is as a quarterback, but Mike White, the only option I recommend at all from the Jets side, a team that has still not scored a single point in the first quarter, is Michael Carter. They have made a real indication that he is going to be pushed along as their RB1. We knew it was going to happen at some point. And if he was on a better team, let's say he was getting the amount of snaps, amount of touches on a team that just wasn't New York Jets, we'd be more excited about Michael Carter. But as of right now, 10.5 spread, second lowest, I believe, over under on the week. This is a bad team. The Cincinnati Bengals defense is a very high recommend for me if you're looking to pick up a defensive stream for this one. But over to the Cincinnati side, because again, I Crowder, you can sit. Davis, you can sit. I don't want anyone from the Jets. It's just not working out. Moving on to the Cincinnati side, though. There's a possibility to downgrade the whole group because of how gross this game, because it has all the hallmarks of a blowout. But Mixon and Chase still firm locks. Burrow top 10 for me. I don't think any of them are going to hit their real ceilings. Last week against Baltimore, that was an in-division opponent. That game was competitive for 3 quarters, and then it really just started into a real stomp for Cincinnati. CJ Uzomah got into the action there. We'll talk about him in a sec. But here against the Jets, I don't think they're going to have to keep on the gas pedal for the entire game. Not a really spot here that I'm saying you really need to have, maybe like much DFS options. Again, this is not a DFS show, but I don't see them being a team that I think is going to hit their real relative ceilings. This seems like a spot where they're fine options in your lineup. I don't want to start the other guys, those being Taylor Boyd, especially Higgins is just a low receiver 2-3 flex sort of guy for me. And CJ is I don't feel like chasing it. Feel free. He's a tight end. Anything can happen there. Just outside my top 15. With 2 very good tight ends in Waller and Andrews, both on bye. I saw a lot of Uzomah picked up this week as at least one person definitely needed a tight end in your league, if not 2. So I understand it. We saw him do this just a month ago and then follow up that, 30-point performance, whatever it was he had, with like a point and a half game. So feel free if you'd like to. I'm just not personally doing it. Carolina versus Atlanta, as I get bit by like a mosquito or something cool on my arm. Great. Carolina versus Atlanta. Atlanta favored by 3, 46-point over under. I like a lot in this game. I really do. Starting on the Carolina side, as usual, Moore, Hubbard, lock and load. Darnold top 15 for those with Jackson to buy, or in Superflex League, I do believe is a very good start. Even with his benching in week 7, it was told that he was they need a little spark out of the Carolina offense. I understand that, because if you're down and lose that game 25-3 to the New York Giants, who did not have Kadarius Toney, Saquon Barkley, Kenny Galladay, and Sterling Shepard, I guess, yeah, you need something. You need someone to blame. You need something to look at. But the team has struggled again. When we said this, without Christian McCaffrey. Darnold's week 4 point total has been more than the last 3 weeks of his production combined. Maybe a partially, big contributor to that is Robbie Anderson. 25 yards on 20 targets over the last 3 weeks. We only had 6 receptions out of that 20 targets. That's disgusting. But it just makes no sense to me. A player who we had good hope coming into the season to be a top 30 receiver in the draft season, not even past my wide receiver 60 for this one. There's no way you can start him. He's not even on rosters in some leagues anymore. He's had good. It's not even just looking at the matchups. He's had good matchups, and he still has not produced. The Atlanta game is not making me force him to roll out as an option. Just keep him on your bench, drop him. I've seen a lot of people drop him for the Houston guys. It's understandable. Running back stinks, and receivers are a dime a dozen. And right now, a ton of them are outproducing Robbie Anderson. It's been just a joke as to why he's been so poorly. Over at the Atlanta side, Matt Ryan and Kyle Pitts really synced up last week against the Miami Dolphins coming out of the bye. Ryan, 10 touchdowns and 1 interception since that week 2 3 interception game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Has only 1 game, unfortunately, over 2 scores. So hope to see possibly another one here against a Carolina team that just had 25 dropped on them from an extremely depleted Giants offense. With Ridley, Patterson, Pitts, Davis, whatever you're going to get out of, Russell Gage and the rest of the funky bunch. I think this is a possible very good game in division here. Atlanta Falcons are a 500 team. They're trying to do something here. The Panthers have completely fallen apart. I think that's a very important game for these two teams, because if you get back in track with a win here for the Carolina Panthers, or the Falcons are looking like a team that could possibly make a run for it. This is a very interesting sort of spot. Onto the options outside of Pitts and Ryan, who are I think Ryan top 12 start for me, and Pitts obviously going to be 1 or 2, whatever you think for you. I do think I'm a little bit hesitant to say what's going to happen after this week, because we don't have Mark Andrews and we don't have Darren Waller. Hawkinson in a possibly good spot, but Hawkinson, Waller, and Andrews at one point this year were crowned the tight end 2 rest of the season. And then we had a situation where Kyle Pitts just had a good game, and now people are saying he should be the tight end 2 rest of the season. They're all good at one point or another, but with 2 guys of that group not playing this week, if you have Pitts, it might be a spot where you can now trade him away for some crazy stuff, because people are very, very excited about the player. And I understand, great game against Miami. I think it might have a good one against the Carolina Panthers here. But let's not get too overly crazy with all this stuff. Moving on. Cornell Patterson, firm start if he's a running back. If he's a receiver, he's a wide receiver 2 for me, along with Calvin Ridley. He saw a good amount of both rushing and receiving work last week. Mike Davis did not see really any meaningful work in week 7. Art Smith came out, coach for the Atlanta Falcons, said just a game plan to call more pass plays. Expects more runs in the future, which is good for Davis. Davis, before last week, we had 1 fantasy point, between 10 and 12 fantasy points in full PPR every other game on the season. Just a floor play running back, no real ceiling to him, doesn't have multiple scoring upside. With Patterson getting all the receiving work that he has been getting and more snaps, which is important. Davis is not seeing any of that sort of stuff we're looking out from the preseason, where he could possibly be a receiving type back who can get you some solid PPR production. He's just been a fine play and nothing really more week to week up to this point. Few games left here. Let's get this one out of the way. San Francisco versus Chicago. San Francisco -3.5, 39.5 point over under. This game stinks. It is. This is one of the few games we've seen with a 40-point over under on the year. I'll make it real quick for you. Mitchell and Samuel on the San Francisco side, and the defense over on the Chicago side. Bears running backs if you want, and that's it. I hate this game. Not talking about it anymore. Buffalo and Miami. Buffalo favored by 13.5, 49.5 point over under. Second largest spread on the board. Still very tough defense, I think, for Buffalo, even though they have that loss against Tennessee 2 weeks ago. Man, time really flies, right? That was 2 weeks ago now. Not much to love from the Miami side outside of Gesicki and Waddle. Tua, highest scoring fantasy quarterback on the week last week against the Atlanta Falcons. A little bit tougher spot here. Are we hoping for some garbage time? Of course. But are we going to be guaranteed garbage time? We don't know. Buffalo couldn't contain Henry. I think they can contain Gaskin. Waddle, inside my top 30 receiver. I respect his talent. And Gesicki has been used in just a bunch of different ways. Like I said, we talk about how he's just getting into bigger, high reception sort of situations. Highest yards per game in his career. Highest snaps per game in his career. Big plays all around. Should be a little bit better than the 35-0 loss that they did receive back in week 2, back when Tua Tagovailoa did get hurt. Again, Tua, very good spot last week. Top 12 option for me. Not a top 12 option here. Just a middling quarterback 2, I think, in this one. Over onto the Buffalo side. Lock and load, Allen and Diggs. It was nice to see Diggs in that first game before the bye of 20-plus points in full PPR. Sanders and Beasley, wide receiver 3. Flex sort of guys for me. Sanders really pushing more to be a wide receiver 2. He's just in a group of guys that all have very similar upside to him. Wide receivers personally in this game, I go Diggs, big drop to Sanders, then Waddle, and then Beasley. I don't really want to trust either Buffalo running back if I can. Prefer Moss to Singletary. With only 2 teams on bye, though, there's a possible spot that your running back group just got some reinforcements and you don't have to start guys like these. Because remember, the number one runner for this team and a team like the Baltimore Ravens is really the quarterback. Like outside, I guess the we saw that also in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is the primary runner for the Eagles. It's not any running back they're going to throw in that backfield. The guys like Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, they don't really matter, unfortunately, right now. And I'm ranking Tommy Sweeney, an offense that is liked using the tight end with Dawson Knox. Again, Dawson Knox coming to here, we didn't really think much about him. Dawson Knox, and could have been tight end like 20 something when you ranked in your preseason ranks. But Sweeney, am I expecting get score? Who knows? But if they like Knox, if they're just going to use this same sort of game plan and just replace one tight end with another, there's a spot here where Sweeney, maybe gets you a chump score in a spot where you really need a touchdown here from a random tight end you got, but not super in love with the play. And then one last game on the docket, and I think we're going to have to return to this game as well because there's some situations going on with the Cleveland side. But Pittsburgh versus Cleveland minus 3.5, 42.5 point over under. Another one of those returning teams from the bye, the Pittsburgh Steelers. We need to see what their the receivers are going to look like after Claypool and the rest of the core behind Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris were definitely overshadowed in that Pittsburgh game. We need to get a little bit more out of Big Ben here at some point because average finish for him on this season is around like quarterback 23, which is where I'm going to be ranking him right now. Broncos are a little bit tough. The Browns are a tough team on the run. 5th lowest points allowed to running backs, which means I don't really overwhelmingly love this spot for Harris. Top 10 play for sure, but not a top 5 play for me. Because again, bottom 5 in yards, bottom 6 in rushing scores allowed. Again, top 12, not a ceiling spot. I was still really hoping for more from Ben leading into this year. We still haven't seen him really have any of those explosion type games. But as long as he keeps getting the ball to Johnson and Harris, possibly Pat Freiermuth as well. Pat Freiermuth, 7-target game before the bye, along with guys like Uzama and Sweeney, and all that tied into crap that are filling in for Waller and Andrews. Fine spot for me here. But I'm not exactly saying that Freiermuth is going to be turning into anything crazy. But he has been used a little bit more. Eric Ebron definitely getting phased out of this offense. Freiermuth, the rookie tight end for them, definitely seeing more and more out of him each week. Again, am I going to say that it's definitely, his time to shine? Again, 7 targets last week, but prior to that, 2, 1, and then, 5. It's not anything super crazy. So just, don't get too overzealous with that one. Then on to the Cleveland side again. I think we're going to pick this game back up on Friday, as this will be our last one. We want to get in and out in a half-hour time. But the Cleveland Browns, and we don't particularly know exactly who's going to play in this game. We think Nick Chubb is going to start. If not, it's going to be Dearness Johnson again. We think OBJ and Landry are going to be healthy enough for this one, but we're not particularly sure. And Baker Mayfield, nursing this shoulder, I would particularly not like him to be out there just yet. It seems like both, him and like Odell can possibly get like surgery on their shoulders in the offseason. Football is a rough and tumble sport, but this is some stuff where I wouldn't really want to be playing around with it. It's a divisional game. Cleveland really needs to get this win. I mean, I guess every win's a must-win situation. That is the most like nothing saying you can have in sports talk shows is that, this is a must win. Every game in football is a must win. You got 17 of these bad boys to go in and get some W's. So that's just silly nonsense. I hate that. And, this is a must win spot. Silly. But with that, we're going to be calling it here for today. Pick it up on Friday. Bunch of good games. Again, the Friday spot is going to be back to being the better spot outside of, this Rams Houston game. I don't know how the Rams got the Lions and the Texans back to back, but cool for them. But otherwise, other than that, we have a bunch of games with a 6 or less point spread. That Jacksonville Seattle game might be a fun one. Washington Denver, we'll see what happens. Tampa Bay New Orleans, cool. So we're going to see you guys back on Friday. But do have one quick question before we go. Randall Cobb, Melvin Gordon, or Cole Beasley at the flex. If you're looking for upside, I think the preference there would be Cole Beasley. I understand Randall Cobb might be getting a little more work because of the loss of both Adams and Lazard for that game, but I can't particularly say that it's a great spot for the Packers offense as a whole. It's going to be, in a PPR spot, maybe pick some receptions, but I think, 8, 9, 10, 11 points is kind of what we're looking at. And we're hoping for a score. Beasley in a spot against Miami where they're very heavily favored. It's going to be pretty easy spot for them to score. I think that's the highest upside, and look for the safest floor. Melvin Gordon has been a very consistent fantasy running back, no matter what's kind of the public opinion on him. So you're looking for safety, Gordon. You're looking for more upside with Beasley. Cobb is probably my least favorite option of the three for sure. Thank you for your question, Boss Man Fat. And with that, we're wrapping it up. So if you like what you see here, make sure to like and subscribe over on the Gridiron Ratings YouTube channel. Make sure to follow me at Methodic One and to follow the site handle at Gridiron Rating, no S. Schedule Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7:30 p.m. It is me with GR Weekly. Tuesdays and Thursdays, Getting Defensive with Gary and the crew. And then on the weekend, you got the slate. Breaking down DFS with Kyle for all your DFS needs. And with that, if this is the first time or the last time you have spent your time with me, I appreciate it. I have been Matt McCarthy. I will hopefully have a good Thursday night football game, and I'll hopefully see you guys here on the next episode of GR Weekly. Till then, see you.